What's up, everybody? Got to do a little change up here. Got to do a little change up. Hold on. We're a little behind here. And again, this is Tony Cutillo, and Josh Allen was the last video. So let's do the new video and get you all caught up to speed here when we talk about George Pickens to the moon. Let's talk about George Pickens. And I want to ask you about George Pickens because I want to know why he's being so undervalued in the world of season long fantasy football. Again, WinDailySports.com is where you find us. Make sure you're following at WinDaily Sports on all social formats. And again, make sure you're signing up. Make sure you're signing up. $14.99. Okay, right here. Get your promo. You see it in the comments. There's the link right there. https:// Win Daily Sports /ref /58 / that gives me some credit that shows that we're talking about this. And the most important thing about these conversations, and I say this all the time, obviously you can hear us on the weekends on Sirius on channel 87. Our show, we have a show on Saturday nights, we have a show on Sunday nights. You can hear myself every Sunday night, me and my boy Dave hosting. We have a lot of different various topics that we talk about, but we're really talking about fantasy football right now because look, football is king. Okay, football is king, and when we go into these early discussions, there's a lot of different comments that we want to take, and a lot of different analysis that we want to take. And I'm not a big hot take guy. Okay, you're gonna learn that. Philly radio is all about hot takes. I know I'm from Philly, but I'm not hot takes. Okay, what I like to do is I like to give you a really professional analytical opinion on why I feel a certain way. When I said the other day that I feel like AJ Brown is the top receiver in fantasy football, got a little backlash on that, but I also explained on why I felt that way. Okay, I just did it. Make sure you go back to the other video. You'll see at the end. I talked about can Josh Allen be trusted as your quarterback one, and that's why I want to talk about George Pickens because I look at this as one of the most talented guys in the NFL. And he got off his track a little bit last year. He got a little edgy. He got some attitude issues last year. And I was actually very surprised because I am a huge Mike Tomlin guy. Mike Tomlin is one of my favorite coaches, if not my favorite coach in the NFL. I think he's hands down the best coach in the NFL. Whether he wins or not, it doesn't matter. He still does not have a losing season under his belt. It's absolutely remarkable when you look at the roster construction that he's had over the years, and it brings us to this year's roster. They go out and they bring in Russell Wilson, and now everybody says Russell Wilson is washed. I get it. You saw the experiment in Denver. I still can't believe what happened in Denver. I was always a Sean Payton guy, but I really do think he did Russ a lot of dirty laundry. He did him really dirty, so to speak, out there in Denver. And I don't think he deserved it, to be honest with you. I know a lot of people say Russ rubs him the right way. Who cares, man? Who cares if he rubs you the wrong way? The guy is the consummate professional. What's wrong with that? He rubs it the wrong way. Why? Because he wants to dot all his I's and cross all his T's. Is that what people worry about now? People worry about, are guys too perfect, so to speak? Are guys, too structured? Well, isn't the NFL all about structure, especially with a quarterback? And when I'm looking at a guy as a quarterback who really made a name for certain wide receivers, before he had a little bit of a decline, Tyler Lockett would be nowhere where he is right now without Russell Wilson. Oh, and by the way, Doug Baldwin wouldn't have been a household name when he played if it wasn't for Russell Wilson. Okay, so I look at George Pickens as a guy who's just a little bit behind the eight ball when you talk about development. But I also look at who was throwing him the ball. He had a few games with Kenny Pickett where he really started to excel. But then it was backup after backup. It's really hard to trust. And the one thing that shows me the inconsistencies is he did listen, number one, before I even get to the inconsistencies, the guy was healthy for 2 straight years. He played 34 games. That's 17 each year. First 2 years, 34 games. When you're talking about NFL fantasy season-long football, that's the kind of guy that you want. You don't want a guy who's questionable every week. You don't want a guy who doesn't show up. You don't want a guy who has soft tissue injuries. You want a guy like George Pickens who plays every single game. 106 targets, and the inconsistency was he only was able to catch 63. That to me is an issue. What's not an issue, though, is his yards per reception. That went up from 15.4 to 18.1. So he showed, what is it? Big play capability. He showed big play capability. And that's a big deal. That's a big deal, especially for a guy like Russ, because here's the thing with Russ. Russ may not have the arm he used to have, but if you look at when he was balling, how did Cortland Sutton look for the last 6 games of last year when Russ was actually playing right? How did Cortland Sutton look on those last 6 games under Russell Wilson? He was catching some TDs, wasn't he? Cortland Sutton was a fantasy asset. Why? Because of Russell Wilson. And what was the biggest advantage of Cortland Sutton? He was the guy who would go up and get the ball. Have we not watched George Pickens? That guy goes up. Yeah, Pickens, he picks everything out of the air. This is exactly the guy that Russell Wilson needs. Now, let me give you another scenario. Again, windailysports.com. Tony Cutillo here talking season-long fantasy football, $14.99, 7 straight days of bets. 7 straight days of bets. You will make that money back. We just had number one NASCAR. One guy, $14.99 gets him what? $1,000. We just had our PGA DraftCast team give out 2 picks at 70-1. 45-1 last week, and guess what? They hit. Okay, so not only did you make your money back, you made it for the entire NFL season. So this is the time you get locked in right now. You have to use this code on the screen and in the comments. This is what you do. Get on there, boom. It's going to take you right to the page, and you're going to see $14.99. And again, I tell everybody, if you have any questions, let me know. Now, the question of George Pickens is what happens if it's not Russ? And what happens if it's Justin Fields? Are you really worried about that? I'm not. Why is that? Because George Pickens is a big yak guy as well, which means those little intermediate routes, like a DJ Moore kind of route that Justin Fields had last year when he actually was in there and progressing, are the same kind of routes that you're going to get from George Pickens. And guess what? If you look at the roster, okay, and what they did, who really scares you? Who really scares you? Did the young guys Calvin Austin and Roman Wilson scare you? Does Van Jefferson scare you? Does Marquez Callaway scare you? Does Quez Watkins scare you when we talk about competition for targets? Hell no. Hell no. I'm not worried about that. George Pickens is the guy. He went from 84 to 106, and he damn near is going to hit 150 targets this year. So that's why I have to ask you, why is he being undervalued? Why is he being drafted behind guys like Mike Evans? Why is he being drafted behind guys like Marvin Harrison Jr.? Let's have that discussion. Everybody wants to jump on the Marvin Harrison Jr. wagon. That's fine. But again, another rookie. And again, another guy who's going with a question mark. I don't care what you say. Kyler Murray is a question mark. If you do not think Kyler Murray is a question mark, you have not been watching football for the last 2 years. I don't care who's there. I don't care what kind of coordinator, what kind of coach. It doesn't matter to me. Kyler Murray is too busy playing video games instead of learning a playbook. It's simple. That wasn't blown out of proportion. That was real. And I am telling you right now, I am not banking a pick on a guy who, yes, is absolutely dynamic, who could come in and set the world on fire in Marvin Harrison Jr. The lineage is there. Everything is there. I get it, but I'd rather take a safer pick in George Pickens. And I'd rather take the safer pick with a coach that I know is got a winning mentality. I'd rather take a safer pick with 2 quarterbacks who I do trust Fields more than I trust Murray. You know why? Because I trust the coach better to put him in them better situations. So there's a lot to like here with George Pickens. There's a lot to like. And I think that if you look overall where he's being drafted outside the top 10, I think that's wrong. I think he's on the tail end of the top 10. In season long, I would take George Pickens as my 9th or 10th receiver. That's where I would take him. I would take him over Brandon Ayuk. I would take him over Michael Pittman Jr. I would take him over Mike Evans. I would take him over Devontae Smith. I love Devontae Smith, but I would take him over Devontae Smith. I think George Pickens this year, if you look at what he did last year, he is going up every year in everything. He's going up by yards. He's going up in targets. He's going up in average per catch. And he even going up in touchdowns. I don't worry about the touchdowns. You know that. Okay. But I'm looking at him this year getting about 140 to 150 targets. He's going to catch between 85 and 90 balls, and he's going to bring in 1,300 plus yards. If that's not a top 10 receiver in fantasy football, then please explain to me what is. And please explain to me who you trust better. But I can tell you right now that I trust George Pickens, and I think he's being undervalued. So while everybody's drafting those guys like a Mike Evans and drafting those guys like a Michael Pittman Jr., I will be all in on George Pickens because to me, he is the safer play. Again, this is Tony Cutillo for all your season-long fantasy football talk right here on WinDailySports.com. Make sure you're getting into our latest deal at $14.99 this week. There is the promo, 7 straight days of bets, 7 straight days of everything, projection models, optimizers, you name it, right there using that link in the comments, in the screen, in the description. It's everywhere. Make sure you use that link, please. If you're not doing me, you're basically doing me a disservice, which is fine, but I'm trying to help. And that's what I do. And if you want to know how our tools work, we have a playlist right here on YouTube. I did it myself. There's about 10 different videos with screen shares. It's going to explain to you how to use our system. Again, I don't promote products I don't stand by and I don't believe in. I've been with Win Daily for 3 years. I've saw a lot of different people make a lot of great picks and a lot of great money moves, and I'm here to try to help you to do the same thing. Again, as always, make sure you lock it right here and make sure my boy Jeff checking in just says Mike Evans just divorced you. Listen, I will say this real fast. Mike Evans, one of the most consistent receivers in the game, but he's not going to put up the numbers like George Pickens. So everybody have a fantastic day. Everybody stay safe, stay healthy. And as always, keep it locked right here for all your Win Daily Sports season-long NFL content for our $14.99 a week.